most respected scientific journal. So what is the science? So that's why we say no, the intellectuals have to be detached. They cannot have stock in medical, or they cannot have a relationship with these pharmaceutical companies. They have to have an existence that is separate. Then we have the managers and administrators. They are taking guidance from the intellectuals on how actually to legislate so that it benefits everyone, right? Then we have the businessmen. Now they've been controlled and guided, by first the intellectuals and then the administrators. Then they can make as much money as they want. That's fine, you can be a billionaire. We're not saying that. It's not like communism or something. You can be as rich as you want, you just have to give a little back, a little bit of charity. Because generally people don't like greed. It's not like a good quality. So you give a little bit back. How much are you going to buy? How many cars are you going to? After you have 20 cars, you don't need any more cars. So then get some water filters for kids in Africa instead. It's not really unfair. So that's how it works. And then you have the working community who are just regular people who just have a job, have a family. They go to work and they go home and they watch X Factor or whatever they do. And that's just a quiet life. And it works. It works if you distinguish between the body and the soul, because then you don't have to be impressive, with all the body work, because the body, who cares? It's temporary anyway. Who knows who was the Prime Minister of Denmark in 1958? Who cares? Even if you know, who cares? But we see it as, number one, the most powerful person in the country. Nobody really cares, So we have to let that go. We have to let go of that idea that the more power I have, the happier I am. The more money I have, the happier I am. Actually, what we see is the opposite. The more money, more problems. I think that's the west coast of America, like the slogan there. That the more you engage with all these things, whatever you want, others will also want. So if you have the money, if you have the power, people will be fighting to get what you have. You have to protect it. And that's just the whole trip. And when you don't have anything that anyone really can take away from you, and the world doesn't really have anything that you want, then what's there to stop you from being happy? Right? So just if we figure out where is our inclination, this is Prabhupada talks about there is a constitutional nature and then there is an acquired nature. So the acquired nature is based on our experiences, our habits, and it could be our acquired nature is to make money. There are some people, they just cannot function unless, it doesn't matter what situation they're in, they see opportunities for making profit in that. So they should be engaged in that, because if they are not, then they will be frustrated. But most people are not in that mentality. They just end up there because they think it will make them happy. Like we talked about the young people who end up at the university. It's not because they actually like the intellectual stuff. It's because they want to be safe and happy and have a good job and a nice job. So there's no correlation between the university and having a nice job. Actually, very few who have like a master's degree end up doing something that is directly related to that master's degree. They end up doing something else. So that's the point, that we have to see what is my acquired nature. I like books, I like studying, so then that's the thing I'm doing. It's not because it's better or worse, it's just because it's the easiest. It's, I get this inclination, I get that kind of fixed, and that means I can focus on other people around me, because that's basically what we want. We want relationships. Someone else might be, if you're in a situation, in a company or something, you get super frustrated if things are not running in the way that it's supposed to be running, or something is not completely right. Okay, you get into that. Or maybe, like we say with the intellectual, he doesn't care about the externals. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if it's practical or not. If it makes sense, intellectually, he's happy. So the manager, he will make it right. He will change the situation if it's not according to Dharma or whatever, so that it becomes right. Now, the businessman, he will find the opportunity. He doesn't have to change, but he will always find the opportunity to gain something. And the worker, he just needs to be protected, basically. He just needs to be, having a nice, quiet life. That's why the media today is so problematic, because they are illustrating how the biggest problems around the globe that we have a very difficult time to do anything about. That's basically what's in the media today, if you open up for the news. That, and then random useless products that you can buy and try to become happy. That's basically what we have. But for the news part, we have a lot of people in this country who are checking the news because they want to be informed, but they're being given examples of situations they can't do anything about. So it generates discomfort, it generates actually stress. It's not news in the sense that, we have an obligation to follow what's happening. I mean, the conflict in Syria has nothing to do with Danish people. They're helpless, they can't do anything about it. So it just makes us feel sad, basically, because it is sad what's going on down there, right? So this is a problem with democracy, actually, because the democracy is the idea that we should all be making these decisions together. It's a noble idea that we should make sure that everybody has their say. But the problem is that we're not necessarily all qualified to have an opinion on these things. And we can see that when we have refugees, 100 refugees comes from Germany with the boat, and then suddenly you have people who think that the country is being overrun and it's being infested with Muslims and stuff like that. We have some pretty erratic reactions to some stuff that's not that big a deal if you look at it from a kind of a cosmic perspective. So democracy doesn't actually work unless there's some kind of filter. Because right now there is unlimited things going on out there in the world. Unlimited, we can't count them. So who decides what is being broadcast for the people of the democratic society to kind of take into consideration? Well, there are some people at the news corporations, and what are they making those decisions based on? They're making the decisions based on whoever finances them and whatever gets the highest ratings, or will get people's attention, because they're in competition with other stations about getting the viewers. So it doesn't have anything to do with what is actually beneficial for the viewer, what will actually make their life better, only if it makes money, So it's a problem. It's a problem in a democratic society that the people are being not force-fed, they can just turn it off, but they're being fed all these things that actually doesn't have anything to do with their life, and doesn't have anything to do with, they can't affect it. So if we have these four social classes, then it creates a filter where you say the working class, or just the average person, just regular person, is kind of screened off from some of these things. That's what the leaders are supposed to be dealing with. It's not supposed to be the people who are dealing with that. That's why they get the respect. That's why they get the higher paycheck. It's because they have to deal with all this nonsense that is so difficult. Not that everybody has to deal. That's another reaction, when the population has to deal with all these things, the politicians are basically just making decisions based on where the populace is kind of heading, which way the wind is blowing. They're legislating just based on whatever the Vox Populi is saying. Then the people are saying, why are they being paid so much? That's a regular thing, that the politicians shouldn't be making so much money. Which is kind of true, because all these difficult decisions that they're supposed to be dealing with, they're leaving it up to the public. They're feeding the public all these dilemmas, and then seeing which way the wind blows, and then that's what they're doing. Because they don't have an ideology, they don't have a philosophy, they just like power. That's what we have power mongers in charge today, So it's a problem. Why? Because they're not being guided by the intellectuals. Because the intellectuals are also just trying to, what is it? Made it as I mean, they have their own project. Flower their own cake. We have to. If that is not an expression, it should be. So everybody's looking out for number one, and that means we need control, right? So we have all these control issues that no, it should be put for court martial, or there should be a law, and it's kind of like button pushing. A button comes up and you push that button, and then another button comes up, and then you push that, and then that's how you legislate. You're just trying to fix problems, but more problems pop up because there's no philosophy. There's nobody actually in charge. It's a really fun thing for me to come back from India when I've been there for half a year, and I haven't really been following these things, and then suddenly just hear what's been happening in Danish politics over the last 6 months. It's some funny stories. There's some erratic behavior. It's like nobody's in charge. You can see that nobody's actually captain of this ship. It's like mudslinging. They're discussing and arguing, and then there should be the populace should be the judge should go in charge. But there's actually no direction. Where are we going? When we talk about the big picture, the only thing that we hear is growth. We want to expand our economy. We want to grow. But we're dealing with a finite planet, so that can't be the end goal, because then we will do what we are actually a little bit doing, which is destroying the planet. So there must be something else. It can't be. You can't have unlimited growth. What is that? There's only one entity in that we know of that has unlimited growth. That's cancer. That's the only thing. That's what cancer is. It's just cells that just, without any kind of restriction, just grows. It just kills everything around it. So so actually modern society is similar to a cancer. It just consumes everything. And in our attempt to consume, we are consumed by it. So we have to detach ourselves from this. And that means find out what's my duty, what's my nature, what's my duty, act according to that, because then we will not be frustrated, we will be peaceful, and when you're peaceful, you don't need to consume all the time. That's the benefit of making people worried, is that you can get them to consume their way out of it. That was why when the 9/11 happened, President George W. Bush, he went on the air and he gave a speech to the population of the world, and America especially. And what did he tell them? He didn't tell them that this is the time for prayer, or this is the time for a strong relationship. No, he said this is the time for shopping. That's what he said. He said you have to keep consuming. The last thing you can do now is to stop spending money, because we have to save the economy. If we don't, the whole thing will go south. So that was his message after 9/11, the biggest catastrophe in the country's history. Spend money. That's basically what it is. That's what they're taking shelter of, just consuming. So that's a problem. It's not that we can't consume, it's not that we can't enjoy life. We're enjoying life. I mean, hopefully we'll have some very nice prasadam this afternoon and this morning also. We like to eat well. We like to be warm when it's cold. It's not that we can't be comfortable, but if the end all is just unlimited consumption, then we will be consumed by it. The things we own, they own us. So that was the liberation for me when I gave away all my stuff and threw out all my stuff before I became a monk, was that suddenly I could do anything. And I've been able to hold on to that pretty much since, that you can go anywhere, be anywhere, and do anything. That's freedom. We talk about, we have a free country, but it's not up to the country of Denmark to make me free. I've made myself free. So that's what we're trying to achieve, is that if we embrace this philosophy, and if we try to not work too hard, find something that fits, like you're at CBS and it didn't fit. So you just quit it, and then find something that works better. Then it'll be easy. And when it's easy, you're not anxious. And when you're not anxious, you're not over-consuming. And then you have a peaceful life. It's that simple. So that's what we're dealing with here when we say the perfect society. I mean, the perfect society, this is the material world, so every endeavor is covered by some fault. There's always something going wrong. So the perfect society doesn't mean that everything works out like the cartoons, just everything happy. It means that the framework is working. There's no fault in the framework. There's no fault in the theory of how we're going to do this. There's no fault in the end goal of our ideology, our philosophy, right? That's the perfect society. How we then are able to apply that may sometimes work out, sometimes not so much. But if you have a principle that's working, then when the detail goes wrong, it's not such a big deal. But when you have a principle that's not working, even if the details are working out, it's still going to give a problematic result, right? So that's what we're trying to get to. That if we follow these Vedic injunctions, we will see that they're actually all accommodating. Now, in the material consciousness, it's a little bit upside down. So then when you abuse it, you get the caste system of India, where everybody is forced into some sort of labor based on their birth, and basically is used to just keep others down, to just destroy social mobility completely. So that's the problem. When you have something that's very powerful, that's very effective, it can be abused in a very bad way also, right? So, but to think that no, we'll create a classless society and then focus on the bodily pleasures or satisfaction, that is an impossibility, because there is no such thing as material equality. There isn't. Different people have different capabilities, they have different talents, and they should be engaged accordingly, because then we will be happy. If we use the same, it'll just basically be a type of anarchy, it's just every man for himself, We say that no, it's nice because everyone can do things on their own, everybody's free to do whatever they want, but actually the result in actuality is loneliness. And we see people are lonely because they're doing everything on their own, but also alone, because everyone else is also thinking about themselves. So suddenly you have someone who dies of a heart attack, and it takes 3 months for anyone to figure it out, because nobody cares. So it's only when it starts to smell for the neighbor, that they call someone and figure out, oh, he's been lying there for quite a while. So that's not happening in some of these poorer countries that we say are very poor. But they're not poor. It depends on your definition of poor. If poor means you worry about money, then Denmark is to a certain extent a poor country. Everybody's worried about money. And many of these countries, Indonesia, Bangladesh, India, nobody cares about money. There's no way they're going to get wealthy, but they have a mango tree in the backyard, so that's what they deal with. And they have a big family. Sometimes it's super annoying, but there's always someone who cares. And if you have a heart attack, someone will notice. So that gives some kind of security, and it feels pretty good that somebody actually will notice. So how do you define poor? Poor relationships, because that's what makes us happy. If we have good friends, if we have family, close family relations, if we have somewhere we feel like we belong, where we're part of something that's greater than just our own instincts and our own urges, that makes us happy. So that's why this perfect society is described here, because if you can get that in place, that framework, then it's easy for us, it's easier for us to fill in the blanks, the details about who does what and what type of flowers are we going to get, whatever it is. That becomes easy because the principle is in place, right? So that's why, that's the purpose of society, right? That's why we're the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. We're not the International Society for Book Distribution, or we're not the international movement for Krishna consciousness. No, we're an international society for what? Krishna consciousness. So everything else is in support of. It's not that, there's nothing wrong with book distribution or study or that, but it's supporting the entity of a society. Like we say that Prabhupada created a house where the whole world can live in. So that's what we're, in all humility, trying to achieve. So that's, where are we now? Do we have a few questions? Yes.
Like the verse. The verse said that when you are engaging your activities, prescribed duties, and then by engaging in devotional service, then you gradually give up these attachments to your occupational duties. It seems to me like sometimes in ISKCON, because we are so confused, what are our prescribed duties, and some of us we like reach middle age before we find out what is our prescribed duties, and then in the process we engage in devotional service, and whatever you engage in and whatever is our prescribed duties, in the process we have also learned to give up the attachment, or we are learning, or it goes on simultaneously.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you figure it out by your middle age, you're doing pretty good. I mean, many they get old and they still have some idea of, no, I'm an intellectual, or everyone wants to be the Brahman and the Kshatriya, right? But the thing is, it works anyway. If you figure these things out or not, it works anyway. It's just going to be a little more bumpy. The ride is going to be a little more bumpy if you're engaged in some service that is not according to your nature. It still purifies you. It still works. You're going to have a little more clashes, or you'll have a little more of these days where you just, something. So it's going to be, instead of a smooth highway, it's going to be like a bumpy gravel road you're riding on. But the main thing is keep the car on the road. That's just the thing. Just stay engaged, and because this is secondary what we're dealing with right now. Actually, this whole society thing. It's really great if it works out, because it means that everything runs smoother. But it's still secondary to the devotional service. Devotional service is the highest principle. And that's why it says that you gradually give up these activities, because gradually giving up these activities means that he gradually gives up the mentality that this is what's going to make me happy. Actually, this, whatever it is, whatever acquired nature, is just a tool to make Krishna happy. When you make Krishna happy, everybody's happy. And there's an unlimited amount of happiness at your disposal. So this activity, that activity, this mentality, that mentality, we can kind of shuffle those cards if we want. But if we just remember the devotional service, it doesn't matter what hand we get, we just play it. Some get a good hand, some get a bad hand, but you just play it and that's it. It'll work. Is that, yeah?
I'm just thinking, is it difficult to identify our conditioning, or is it difficult to accept the conditioning?
That's the thing. It's scarily easy to identify. It's very difficult to accept. The thing is, just assume that you're the worker. If you're not, that will come on its own. Because if you're a businessman by mentality, by guna, we say, by quality, then you can't help yourself finding opportunities to make money everywhere. We see these people, it just doesn't matter where you put them, they will make money. It's just they see something, they say, oh, I can import this is cheap, I can sell it there, or I can combine these two products into one product, or separate it because that's not even needed, or something. Whatever it is, they find the opportunity. So if you're an administrator or a manager type, you will create the opportunity, because you will be looking at something that could be done better, and you have to act, so you will create the environment. And if you're the intellectual, the environment doesn't matter, because you're just dealing intellectually with whatever is there. So whenever people are saying, I don't know what my nature is, they're Sufi. It's very easy. If you don't know, that means you're just a worker. And there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing that's wrong is the idea that it's somehow worth less. Maybe even worthless. That's one word. That, I'm stinky, smelly Sudra. No. They're a spirit soul. That's why it's so important that we started out by distinguishing between the consciousness, the living entity, and then the bodily situation that the living entity is in. Because if we don't distinguish that, then, there's all sorts of nasty stuff going on. We see how we treat the animals sometimes. It's because we don't actually acknowledge that they're living entities. So, but if we do separate, then just be a Sudra. Why not? I would much rather be a Sudra or a worker than I would be a businessman or a manager. Everybody always complains about the managers because they're making the decisions on other people's behalf. And everybody's always complaining about the businessmen because they have all the money. We want all the money. So if you want a quiet, peaceful life, be a worker rather than any of those two. So that's the problem. It's scarily easy to see what your conditioning is, what your motivation is on your mentality. And I think we had the alarm go off, so this marks the end of this lecture. Thank you all for listening, and Hare Krishna.
Jai. På engelsk, så siger man feather your own nest.
Yes.
Har du hørt det udtryk før?
Jo, det har jeg. Jeg ledte lige efter den inde i mit hoved.
Ja,
jeg kan nu personligt bedre lide flower your own nest.
Feather one's own nest. Hele sin egen kasse, one's own nest, eller også look after number one.
Yes, looking after.
Den har jeg.
Ja. Men jeg kan nu bedre lide flower your own cake. Jeg synes, det er virkelig godt.
Og så var det HG Hansen.
Der var statsminister i 58.
Ja.
Jeg tænkte nok, det skal lige passe, der en, der faktisk ved det. Men det var også derfor, jeg lige bagefter sagde, who cares?
Nej, den fik jeg ikke med.
Det var fordi, du sad og tænkte, jeg ved det.
Jeg tager afsted i dag, som sagt, først gennemsætte. Der er ikke nogen, altså, hvis du sender den nye sprød, der er ikke noget særligt at lave dem. Altså, de er bare standard.
Okay. Er du tilbage til...
Jeg er tilbage på koncert.
Okay.
Men giver det ikke stadig mening, at der er mange gange svært at finde ud af, fordi at folk, altså nu får folk hele tiden med helt vildt høje karakterer i match.
Ja.
Altså
i
alle fagene.
Ja.
Og så hvad man er bedst til, så må man gå efter, hvad man føler for.
Det er det. Og
det er også folk svært ved.
Det er det, folk har svært ved, fordi de får simpelthen for mange for input. Altså det der med at sætte sig og bare kigge lidt ud af vinduet og så tænke, hvad kan jeg egentlig godt lide at lave? Det er svært, fordi at en ting er, at altså, man får så mange input, og så sindet bliver sådan kørt op, og man er vant til Facebook og Twitter og alt sådan noget, så det der med bare sådan lige at få lidt ro på, og så føle, hvad har jeg egentlig lyst til? Det er enormt svært. Ja, så fordi vi er jo sociale væsener, og når man hele tiden får sådan nogle indtryk udefra om, hvad der vil gøre dig til en succes, så får man sådan en tendens om, så må jeg hellere leve op til det.
Det er ikke de mange muligheder, der er ikke nemmere.
Nej, det gør det nemlig.
Det gør bare lidt mere
for det er også svært, altså, som du også selv sagde, at det er svært at komme ind på studiet nu. Så det kan godt være, at det her, du burde gøre, så du er nødt til at tage en anden vej.
Det kan også godt være, at du er bedre end 80% af dem, der søger ind.